So, good morning, students. We'll continue with our unit number 3 and topic number 5, which is concepts, nature, and characteristics of planning, procurement, and inventory control, and just in time, that is JIT manufacturing. So, the first one is concepts of planning. Planning is the most basic and primary function of management. It is the pre decided outline of the which are to be conducted in an organization. So, planning is the process of deciding when, what, when, where, and how to do a certain activity before starting to work. It is an intellectual process that needs a lot of thinking before the formation of plans. Planning is to set goals and to make certain guidelines achieve the goals. Also, planning means to formulate policies, segregation of budget, future programs, etc. These are all done to make the activity successful. In continuation with planning, an organization can be successful in effective utilization of its human, financial, and material resources only when only when the management decides in advance about its objectives and methods of achieving them. So without it, purposive and coordinated effort is not possible, and what results are chaos, confusion, and wastage of resources. So, planning involves the determination of objectives in a business, formation of programs and courses of action for their attainment, development of schedules and timings of action, and assignment of responsibilities for their implementation. Planning thus precedes all efforts and action as it plans and programs that determines the kind of decisions and activities required for the attainment of the desired goals. It lies at the basis of all other managerial functions, including organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. In the absence of planning, it will be impossible to decide what activities are required, how they should be combined into jobs and departments, who will be responsible for what kind of decisions and actions, and how various decisions and activities are to be coordinated. So, in the absence of organizing involving the above managerial activities, that is, planning, staffing, directing, and controlling, staffing cannot proceed and directing cannot be exercised without proper organizing and planning. So, planning is also an essential prerequisite for the performance of control function as it provides criteria for evaluating performance. Planning thus precedes all managerial functions. Next topic, nature of planning. So, planning permits coordinated effort towards the attainment of predetermined objectives. It helps the manager to shape the organization's future. Thus, the purpose of planning is to provide rationality to the organization. According to Lyndall Arlwork's principle of objective, all actions in the organization must be directed towards the attainment of the enterprise's objectives, and a wisely conceived plan facilitates this. Planning is the function of every manager, so every manager must plan irrespective of the level at which he operates in the organization. From the managing director, from the managing director to the down to the first line supervisor, all plan in an organization, although the breadth and scope vary with the level of hierarchy. So planning, controlling, organizing, staffing, and directing, all these are managerial functions designed to realize the organizational objectives. Planning, however, precedes all other functions, and it is through planning alone that the manager decides what to do, when to do, and who will do the assigned work. So, planning and control go together. So, planning and control are like the CME streams who cannot survive without the other. That is, planning and control go hand in hand together. You cannot ignore planning and go for control, and you cannot ignore control and go for planning. Both should go simultaneously in a project. So, however, one cannot control what is not planned without predictability. Characteristics of planning. So, the following are the characteristics of planning. The first one is planning is looking into the future. Second, planning involves predetermined line of action. Third, planning discovers the best alternative out of available many alternatives. Fourth, planning requires considerable time for implementation. Fifth, planning is a continuous process. Next, planning's object is to achieve predetermined objectives in a better way. Planning integrates various activities of organization. Planning is done for a specific period. Planning not only selects the objectives but also develops the policies, programs, and procedures to achieve those objectives. Planning is required at all levels of management. Planning is an interdependent which coordinates the various business activities. Planning directs the members of the organization, and growth and prosperity of any organization depends only upon a planning. Next, procurement and inventory control. So many manufacturing companies have adopted computerized systems to control the flow of resources and inventory. Materials requirement planning, which is basically known as MRP, is one such system. MRP uses a master schedule to ensure that the materials, labor, and equipment needed for production are at the right places, in the right amounts, and at the right times. The schedule is based on forecasts of demand for the company's products. It says exactly what will be manufactured during the next few weeks or months and when the work will take place. Sophisticated computer programs coordinate all the elements of MRP, that is materials requirement planning. The computer comes up with materials required by comparing production needs to the materials the company already has on hand. So orders are placed so items will be on hand when they are needed for production, while maintaining the lowest possible amount of materials and product to remain in-house. Next, just-in-time manufacturing, basically known as JIT, abbreviated as JIT. It is a strategy that the companies employ to increase the efficiency and decrease the waste by receiving goods only when they are needed in the production process, thereby reducing the inventory cost. So in theory, a JIT system would have parts and materials arriving on the warehouse dock at the exact moment they are needed in the production process. To make this happen, manufacturers and suppliers must work together closely to prevent the just in time from becoming just isn't there. So operations managers must accurately forecast the need for materials, since even the slightest deviation can result in a slowdown of production. So RP helps ensure a smooth flow of finished products. So that's all. You can give your attendance in the chat box. Thank you.
Real from Simply Learn. I am Chandra MR, a professional consultant and coach in best practices related to project management and IT service management. Today, as part of this tutorial, we are going to learn the basic understanding about the project management and the required knowledge for a project manager to become successful in managing projects. So, as part of this tutorial, we are going to look at what is project management, what is project, components of project management, project life cycle, key focus areas in project management, job roles in project management, and project management certifications. So, what is project management? Now, as defined in PMI's PMBOK, project management is application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. So every project will have an objective to accomplish. Similarly, the objective of project management is to make the final deliverables in a finite time and budget. This involves having clear understanding about the deliverables of the project, required resources for the project, resource in terms of human resources, technical resources, financial resources, etc. Project manager should have a full picture of those aspects. We can call it as constraints or aspects and manage those throughout the project life cycle, for which a project manager should have a full view about a project and what is that this project has to accomplish. That objective should be clear. So, as part of project management, the six constraints which project managers should look at are scope, time, quality, cost, risk, and resources. So, each of these areas has very important role to play in project management. The clarity in scope, the clarity in terms of schedule within which the project has to be delivered, the cost, what it incurs to that particular project. Once it is finalized, one cannot vary, one cannot change without any proper approvals. Similar to that, we have quality management, which has to ensure the scope, the specifications, what are defined. Project output will be accordingly achieved. Risk. Every project is taken up for a specific reason by organization. So organization should assess the risk associated with the project, and similarly as project progresses, various different risks has to be identified, like risk related to project management, risk related to technology area, risk related to resources, risk related to financial things. So broadly, risk management plays a very important role. So there will be something called contingency reserve kept for a identified risk above the cost what is estimated for various deliverables from the project. So every project require resources. Resources may be in terms of human resources, financial resources, technology resources, environmental resources. So all these resources are used to produce the output of the project. So these resources has to be managed with the sufficient optimization and standardizations required. Now let us understand the definition of a project. So what is a project? PMI defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. The temporary nature of a project indicates that a project has a definite beginning and end. So when I say product, unique product, it means every output, it may be similar products you are producing with the same features and functionality. But the output of every project is unique because it is unique in terms of all the six constraints what we just discussed now. Now, when I say product, it is very easy for us to visualize. It may be a desktop, it may be a laptop, it may be a car, it may be a machine, etc. But how do I visualize a service? The project's output is a service. Now, it's about building a capability. A project by through a project, a capability can be built to ensure services can be provided. That's what the output of project is service. For example, if I think about a taxi services, for providing a taxi services, I need a mobile app, I need taxi, I need a server, I need a data center. So all these are various different products and services. Here, service example can be internet service. So combination of all the services and products builds the capability for an organizations who can provide the taxi services. So building that capability, we say it is an output of a particular project which is called service. Similarly, results can be improvement of something, improvement in customer satisfaction, increase in some specific objectives or specific results needs to be achieved in performance perspective. So output of every project will be unique product or a service or a result. This we need to clearly understand. So when we say there is a definite beginning and end, every project starts at a certain point in time and ends at certain point in time. So it has a definite beginning and end. That is the reason it is temporary in nature. It is not an ongoing business activity, right? So every project will have a life cycle, a beginning and end. So when it starts till end, until the result or a service or a product which comes as an output of a project life cycle is not ended. So interestingly, in a product life cycle or in a service life cycle, you come across many project life cycles. So one project life cycle means one project is initiated to introduce a product or services. Next project or initiated would be to enhance the capability of a service or a product. Next project initiated after some time is to optimize something. Similarly, at the end of the product life cycle, project is initiated to retire that product or services. So in a given product life cycle, there will be multiple project life cycle. So what is involved in the project life cycle? It involves five areas, five groups we can call it as. So initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and closure. So when I say initiation, it's all about understanding what is project, giving the basic understanding of the project, collating the details, and having key stakeholders identified. Once that is done, one will move towards planning. So here in the initiation, it is very clearly one has to understand is project is worthwhile of doing. So one has to check the feasibility, one has to measure that particular investment is making sense, and then confirm yes, it makes sense to invest. Now, next, planning. As we have a basic understanding of, yes, this project has to be done, and a discussion with the key stakeholders have happened, now that moves towards planning. Now, in planning, one will understand the project in entirety. If it is a waterfall approach, one has to have a clear articulation of entire project, a comprehensive details, holistic approach. Now, if you're going in a project in a agile way of approach, now in this planning, you may have a big skeleton. As you go in each of the iteration, you may go deep dive into detailed planning if it is an agile approach. So planning provides you the clear insight towards what needs to be done in this project, how it has to be done, and what are the results which can be achieved out of that particular project. So this involves making that a clear blueprint of an project objectives, what we are supposed to achieve. So this will become a reference point throughout the project lifecycle. Then execution. As you have a blueprint of the project, as the direction of the project is set, detailing of the project has been made, one will go ahead and execute the project. Execute in the sense implementation, acquiring resources and implementing it. So execution phase involves the allocation of resources and making the deliverables as required. You acquire resources, you configure a resource, you ensure right resources are acquired. If it is human resource, one has to educate that human resource with the project required knowledge or details, or one has to provide that assignment in such a way that skills of that individuals what they should have is acquired by those individuals so that deliverables can happen, and they needs to be managed. The entire team needs to be managed. For that, a clear structure has to be created. Similarly, when you do technology resource perspective, those components has to be tested, configured, then integrated, again tested for and check the performances. So collective action of this results in a deliverable during the execution. So as the deliverables are happening in the execution, it's quite obvious. Project manager has to monitor, review, control that particular deliverable, and also the processes, tools, resources used during the project, even those needs to be monitored so that they are complying to the defined processes. So during monitoring, there may be a deviation one can found. During monitoring, there may be the project is running the way it is required. So in this monitoring phase, it involves an action from project manager to monitor and control the work of the project. So comparing with the blueprint of plan, what is accomplished, what is created during the planning phase of this project, and as the execution happens, monitoring and control is monitoring it and checking is that activities what is being done is according to the plan or not. Similarly, the deliverables which comes as an output of a project are tested thoroughly, whether those have a specific features and functionality and are they functioning the way it is required. Now, project has to be delivered to the scope what is defined. It should not go beyond that or below that. Similarly, the schedule what is made for the project, within that schedule project deliverables needs to be accomplished within the cost what is budgeted for the project. So during the project, your project manager may find there are certain deviations which are occurred. There are additional challenges which has come in. So for this reason, one has to ensure continued monitoring as the execution happens and identify those deviation and ensure whenever there is a deviation, there is a correction. Whenever there is an additional things coming in, that needs to be considered carefully whether that need to be involved as part of this deliverable or should be taken it separately. So this requires a lot of conversation with all the stakeholders of the project during the entire project lifecycle, especially during planning, execution, monitoring, and control, since they are not the one which is happening in sequence. So planning can also come back again where there is something which you may require to modify. So you may require to have a change in the blueprint itself by adding that new change which is coming in. So you go back to planning. So planning, execution, monitoring, and control are going hand in hand so that project deliverables are happening as needed. Similarly, all the process, what instructions, all those templates what is given are used. One is complying to those requirements. It is very important. And project is done within the scope, schedule, and time, and the quality metrics defined. Then, as the completion of the project happens, as the monitoring and control says, yes, deliverable has happened according to the requirement, then the project moves to the closure. The closure may be closure of a specific project phase, a milestone deliverable or a phase deliverable, or it can be a deliverable at the end of the project, which is the ultimate deliverable. So processes in closing has to be triggered whenever there is an end of the phase, whenever there is a deliverable to conclude, and also at the end of the project to conclude the entire project. So during the closure, one has to ensure capturing all the details in terms of what is accomplished against what is defined, what went wrong, what went well, what is the learning one has to take to the next level or to next phase or to the next project. And at the same time, a sign off has to be obtained formally, and everything should be summarized and have a good handshake with the project stakeholder, mainly a business or customer. And also disseminating of team means you will dismantle the entire team and send them back to their specific units or specialization, and they may get assigned to new project, or if it is a functional, they can go back to their functions to do their functional activities. So that was about entire project life cycle, what happens. Now while doing this, I mentioned there are six constraints, that is scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk, and resources. So keeping these in mind, one has to ensure project is successful in all aspects. So to become successful, there are a few key areas which has to be looked at. So first six key areas are scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, and stakeholders. Now let us look at the scope. What does scope means? Scope is about what needs to be delivered. What is in scope? What is out of the scope? So this refers to all those deliverable scope, all those activity scope. Basically, we speak about two things. One is product scope and project scope. Product scope is all about ensuring the features, functionality of products are well defined and understood and signed off. And while delivering that product, that is tested against those defined features and functionalities. Whereas project scope focus on all the activities needs to be done, all those templates which has to be used, all the process which has to be complied with, all that skills which is required to be applied. So it is going as defined. So by doing this activities which is defined as part of project scope, the result, the deliverable will come out, which will be in line with the deliverables, features, and functionality, which is defined as part of product scope. It is very important to ensure entire projects happens within this particular scope. There should not be any deviations from this. Schedule perspective, for that specifications, what we define for a product and project. So these needs to be done in a specific point in time, means in a specific schedule. There will be start time, end time, right? So one has to plan how long a project would take and what are the deliverables should happen in what sequence, what activities are required to accomplish this. So all these needs to be understood. So while performing the schedule management, one has to look at a specific deliverable at a specific point in time by applying a specific set of activities required. So this will tell you the duration of the project. This will provide you the sequence of project. This will also help you to understand the dependency between one task to another task. This will also help you to understand how the deliverables happening in what sequence, which helps in prioritizing your deliverables. Third is cost. So as we know, to do any project, it is very essential to ensure project happens within that budget. So project cost is estimated initially. Then that estimated cost will be checked in terms of is the assumptions, considerations are right or wrong. Is that really so much of monetary resources are required for the project? And then after understanding the justification and obtaining the clarity, budget is, monetary resources are allocated and confirmed, approved. Then it will become a budget. That will be a cost baseline. So these estimation, allocation of budget, once it happens, that will become a base, and any deviations from that cannot happen so easily. So any deviations because of additional of scope, that can be handled through change management. But idealistic scenario, the cost should not escalate or come down. Organization can also set certain tolerances at the project level, considering various different scenarios, like scenario of risks, scenario of something which deviated from the deliverable. So to what extent it can deviate, that tolerance will also be set at the economic or monetary value perspective. That is about cost. Now, quality, as we know, quality is a very important area which ensures the project is delivered in time with all the specifications defined by using all the methods, means by following all the processes, work instructions, templates, and delivering as needed, where it enables the project to monitor it easily. So basically, the requirement of compliance and standardization and optimization is to ensure everyone follows the same steps to the activity. So what quality management focuses to ensure the intended objectives of a project are achieved. Already there is a definition done in terms of various different practices or processes needs to be followed. Similarly, specification of each of the products are defined, and from that there should not be any deviation. So quality management should focus on ensuring those activities are done as defined. Those deliverables are done according to the specifications what is different. It is very important that way. So for that, there is a layer of quality management. There should be a layer of quality management where auditing or control activities are initiated periodically so that any deviations can be seen easily. And remember, a project manager cannot become part of quality management. Like project manager cannot audit. Project manager should have a team or take the help of a team who can able to do. Mostly the one who is not part of the project is always better. Resources. Now, as I mentioned earlier, every project need resources. It